Okay, I have to apologize because I am just going to kill this happy father vibe dead right now. Sorry in advance. So, I once tried family therapy with my father, and we made it through about 3 sessions, barely. He stormed out in the middle of the 4th, and that was it. We didn't speak again for almost 2 decades. On New Year's Day, 2009, my brother called. My father had suffered a massive stroke and was in the hospital. He wasn't expected to make it. Knowing that this was my last chance to make any sort of peace with him, I went to his bedside. Walking into that hospital room was one of the hardest things I have ever done. I asked for some time alone with him. I held his hand. I wished him peace. He squeezed my hand back. It's probably the most honest conversation we ever had. He died a week later, and my grief took a doubting turn. I second-guessed our estrangement, and fueled by his later-in-life wife's stories of their happy life together, I wondered if I'd screwed up. I wondered if he'd changed, if my tyrant of a father had morphed into the Mike Brady, Pa Ingalls hybrid I'd longed for all my life. And then came the wake. His wife sang his praises. Such a kind man, so gentle, so kind-hearted and generous. A lost little boy who wanted only love. My doubt redoubled, and I really wondered, had I screwed up? Had I let this opportunity go by? And then she went on. You children had such a wonderful childhood. The camping trips, the ski trips, board games, outings, hikes. Spit take? Hello? Was she trying to tell me that my father had actually been Mike Brady? Because I remember the camping trips, and I remember cowering in the tent late at night while my father raged drunkenly outside. And I remember the ski trip where he hit my sister over the head with a ski pole for some infraction. And the time he took us kids away for a week, dumped us off at the resort, and spent the week with his mistress. I remember hikes where little legs were forced to walk for miles on railroad tracks while food and water were doled out at his whim. And I remember when I was about 8 years old, standing in the living room, looking out the window at my father sitting in his car in the driveway, ready to go somewhere. I was happy to see him leaving until my mother said, "He's just sitting there hoping that someone will go along with him. Go with your father and keep him company." I didn't want to go because he didn't really feel like a father to me. He was kind of this stranger, and I don't think he really understood what children need. But my mother said that he was sad inside, and that I should think about his feelings. Whoa, spit take again. He was sad inside? I was sad inside. I was very sad inside, but my inner life wasn't up for discussion. So I went, and I tried to follow the new rules that she gave me. Be nice to Daddy because he suffers things that you can't possibly understand. And don't tell anyone about the fighting and the drinking. He does those things because he's tortured. And, oh, by the way, your home life isn't so bad, so quit complaining. So as I stood there at the wake, trying to resolve the dissonance between what my father's wife was telling me about my childhood and what I remembered, I realized that lost little boy narrative that had shaped my childhood didn't come from my mother the way I always thought it had. It had come from my father. He fed it to my mother, and then later he fed it to his next wife. And I also realized that, for what it's worth, I think he really believed those stories that he told. I think that his denial ran so deep that his left hand never knew what his right hand was doing. They say that denial is just a river in Egypt. I say when it comes to my father, you could braid together all the rivers of the world and still not have enough to create an adequate metaphor about the depth of his self-delusion. And all these years later, I can see beneath the lies and all the denial, I can see the truth beneath it. He was sad inside. He didn't understand what children needed because he hadn't got what he needed as a child. He was broken, and he did what broken people do. He stumbled along. He kind of made his way through life, and then he tried to tell himself and anyone who would listen a more palatable narrative about his life. I could give this story a Lifetime television for women kind of ending, but I'm not going to. While it would be pleasant to say that it all turned out fine and that I got what I needed from him and that 11th hour hand squeeze made up for the years of misery that we both went through. But it wouldn't be true. And while it's tempting to pull that comforting blanket of denial over my own head, I know that in the end, it will suffocate me the way it suffocated my parents. So I throw it off, and instead, I offer you this happy ending. I'm here, I'm alive, life is good, and I forgive him. Thank you.